Okay, welcome back to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FEU Student Media. I'm Megan, and with me is Maddox and Morgan, and we are live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube as well as UPress Sports Instagram. So, as we all know, normally we would get into FAU housekeeping, but the Super Bowl happened last night, so it's only right that we talk about it. It was Super Bowl 59, so next year we'll be back to 60, and the Eagles won 40-22. I'm sure that you guys are kind of shocked. I think the country is shocked that the Chiefs did not have a better performance, specifically Patrick Mahomes and just Travis Kelce, and we'll get into all of that. But what were your guys' reactions to the game?
As someone who was thinking, the Chiefs are going to find a way, they're going to win. Unfortunately, of course, the Eagles won, and of course, my family ain't proud that I voted for the enemy. So that's very fun. My entire family's from Philly, so that's very unique.
So you wanted the Chiefs to win?
I just feel like the Chiefs are going to win. I just feel like they're going to find a way, how they always did, the past, this entire regular season. I think 15 straight games or whatnot. They were either down by a point or by one possession or something, but they're always able to very end to find a way to win. So I figure that will happen. But I think what this shows is at least for the Eagles, they were very determined. I'm sure everyone knows on social media how a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, this offseason I think, where Jalen Hurts had, someone saw a picture on social media where Jalen Hurts' home screen was him leaving the Super Bowl, I think 57, when they lost to the Chiefs, in a very great Super Bowl, the 38-35 Super Bowl, and the confetti around him. So he had his mindset on that the entire past couple of years. So the Eagles showed they were very determined. They were really prepared for this.
Yeah.
And the defense played lights out. Hurts was running around. The Chiefs, I felt and I tweeted this, how I felt the Chiefs were preparing a lot for Saquon, because everyone was saying Saquon's going to be the savior for the Eagles and take down the mighty Chiefs. They're going to do all of that. Everyone was looking to Saquon, because I feel the Chiefs were looking at Saquon the entire time, preparing to face him. They were able to stop Saquon the entire game. He had I think at one point 17 carries for about 40 yards, very minimal numbers.
Yeah.
I feel they put all their energy and effort to stop him, and not much else to stop anyone else, including Jalen Hurts. He was running circles around everyone.
The fact that the Chiefs didn't score until 34 seconds left in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think first time in Mahomes' would have almost been the first time in Mahomes' career where he didn't score within the first 3 quarters of a game.
Probably. Honestly, I would believe that statistic. I don't know if that's true or not. But then once they scored in the fourth quarter, they kind of were starting to come back a little bit. It was just
too far.
It was the fourth quarter. It was way too late for that.
And I felt Xavier Worthy, shout out to the rookie for the Chiefs. I felt he in a way kind of carried them late in the game, because first half they scored no points, and then in the last 2 quarters they scored all their 22. And Xavier Worthy led receiving with 157 yards. No one came close. Only one player, Kelce, was just within 40. After that, no one else was near Xavier Worthy. So the rookie helped the Chiefs get points on the board. He had 2 touchdowns as a receiver, and then D-Hop got a touchdown as well. But he led the receivers in touchdowns as well as receptions and receptions and receiving yards. So I feel it was a great show out for the rookie leading the team. And speaking of rookies, also shout out to Cooper DeJean for also the rookie, his birthday, which I didn't know his birthday was also yesterday, because the entire media was focusing on Saquon, his 28th birthday, playing in the Super Bowl. But also was Cooper DeJean's, and he was the first NFL player to score a touchdown on his birthday. And it wasn't just that, it was a pick 6 that helped the Eagles continue on the run. That led to their 17-0 lead over the Chiefs. So he helped big time for the Eagles as well.
Yeah, so when I think about why did the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I kind of think back to the previous drafts. If you really don't know, like they have like a little joke where it's like the Georgia Eagles because of how many Georgia players they pick, and also the fact that some of these players fall in the draft for whatever reason, and the Eagles are like, yeah, sure, I'll pick the
like I know like Jalen Carter, I know like
Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith Jr., all three of those guys.
I believe it was Jalen Carter where during the offseason before the draft, the Georgia Bulldogs were having their championship parade, and tragically, a couple players and like one of the I think recruiting people were involved in the car crash, and I think it was like Jalen Carter was in a way associated with it, or was with them either in the car or was one of the other cars or something. Like he was like involved in some way with that. Because of that controversy, I think that like plummeted him down to be in the second round pick. He was projected to be like a top, like I think 15 or 20 overall pick, but he got moved into the second round. It was mainly because of that little stigma around it. Like still tragic, but like I don't think he had like some connection to it. He wasn't involved in like the crash, but like he had like, in a way some connection with that fatal accident.
And then I don't know. I think that it's kind of weird that the accident like impacted how his draft order was like picked. I feel like there's so many things that just they're connected in strange ways, and there's a lot of things actually with this Super Bowl that kind of had weird connections, like the fact that Tom Brady was commentating, which to me was strange. I didn't really like. I've always just been a Tom Brady kind of hater. But it was strange that now he's like commentating on the Super Bowl, and he was speaking on like Patrick Mahomes, and who's someone that's in contention for like people are comparing the two of them now. But what do we feel like after this loss? Do we think that Mahomes is his kind of legacy is gonna be impacted?
Actually, before we get into that, I want to mention that the Tom Brady, you're saying about that connection. His first Super Bowl win was against the Rams, and that was also in New Orleans. So him commentating his first Super Bowl was in New Orleans.
That's actually really cool. I didn't know that. And the last time that the Super Bowl was in New Orleans, didn't the lights go out?
They had the Blackout Bowl.
Yeah, Ravens and 49ers 2012.
Yeah.
Or 2013. But 2012 season.
That arena is really nice.
It is really
I've
nice.
seen the outside of it, and like
they always do a good job like with that city when it comes to Super Bowls. And
because they said like the 11 times in New Orleans, I think like also 11 times in Miami, like only two places where they had hosted the most Super Bowls, which is also like a given. It makes sense because like they're like big prominent cities, like very like warm climates. So like of course going to host events there. I think soon enough they're going to start playing more games like in Vegas and probably in LA as well, because the next Super Bowl is going to be back in I think Santa Clara or in San Francisco.
Is it?
I think so, yeah, because then the logo, which we're going to bring up a little bit later, has the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Super Bowl LX in Santa Clara. Yeah. So they're going back to California.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say real quick, Jalen Carter was projected to be like one of the top 5 picks, and he dropped to 9.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, 9. It's not
not the second round. Nolan Smith was he dropped.
Nolan Smith. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was surprised by that because he was also very good in college. I thought he was going to be
all 3 of those guys, the Georgia Bulldogs on the Philadelphia Eagles. They're all championship defensive players on the Georgia. Like they won in 2021, 2022 with Georgia. Yeah. So I mean that's a seamless fit. First off, trenches. One of the biggest reasons why the Eagles did win was because of the trenches. They had a great offensive line, a great defensive line.
Yeah, the defensive line got to Mahomes the entire time.
Exactly.
But I think it also just shows how like the Chiefs, they were really having their eyes set on stopping Saquon.
Yeah.
Where I feel like they maybe weren't too focused on trying to work on really anything else, which I don't think they're given. Like of course they're like thinking a couple of weeks before the Super Bowl, those 2 weeks. Next to media, they're also working on like what we're going to do for the Super Bowl. But I feel like a lot of their energy though was granted going to Saquon to stop him. They stopped him with like, what was it? It was 25 carries for 57 yards. They stopped him bad, but they didn't focus on Jalen Hurts. They didn't focus on Devontae Smith, it was the first ever Alabama wide receiver to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. They didn't think of stopping A.J. Brown. Like they just only were focused on Saquon. They weren't focused on the whole on anything.
I will say, like, we can tell with their the Chiefs defense, like they could not stop Jalen Hurts on the run. Like the trenches opened up, zoom, he was gone. Yeah, and that was perfect.
Yeah,
because
I mean AJ Brown's he had 72
rushing yards.
Yeah, and AJ Brown's touchdown it was a drag route and no one was covering him. No one at all. I'm like, you're not covering a guy inside the 5 on the drag route. That is bad. Because he was going across the field and then turning. So he got open into the end zone. I'm like, you had no one covering A.J. Brown throughout the entire route, which I thought that was very poor defense.
So getting into what does this mean for Mahomes' legacy?
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to ask a question at the end talking about specifically Mahomes kind of versus Tom Brady, because Mahomes is like the next like face of the league for the league and the next like potential GOAT, greatest of all time. And my question was going to be like, how much does this hurt that like goal for Patrick Mahomes?
Like,
because I feel like Tom Brady's never had a loss. Maybe the early years, because I think he.
I saw a graphic where when Mahomes played Brady between the between the Chiefs and the Bucks, that he lost that Super Bowl. When Brady was commentating, Mahomes lost. But when Mahomes played any other quarterbacks, and Brady was not involved at all, whether either commentating or playing against, he won those Super Bowls. So
they're saying that Brady like cursed it for him?
Basically, but for me, I feel like what this just shows is Tom Brady is the undoubted GOAT. Like, of course, not saying that Mahomes isn't a great quarterback. He is, but also like when you go one-on-one against Brady, he won one-on-one against Brady, I think like 2 or 3 times in his career. He lost every single game. So that right there already stops the whole GOAT debate. Because you can't defeat the GOAT while you're still playing against him, then you're not really in a GOAT debate. Like
this is also coming from a Patriots fan.
Exactly.
I forgot that you're a Patriots fan. So my rebuttal against that, real quick, is that in that Bucks versus Chiefs Super Bowl, we both watched it. That wasn't like, this Super Bowl was different. Yes, the offensive line didn't play well against the Eagles defense, but at the same time, Patrick Mahomes didn't play well. However, in that Chiefs versus Buccaneers Super Bowl, we all know that this is a team sport. It's not like basketball where it's like, like if Michael Jordan and LeBron James were actually in the prime at the same time, like we could tell who's better. But we can't tell with quarterback because there's a lot of factors that go around it. Right? And the Buccaneers Super Bowl was a little bit tough because Patrick Mahomes, he was running for his life. His entire offensive line was injured, and it's really tough for me to be like, oh, Tom Brady beat him in the Super Bowl. Hands down, he's the GOAT.
Yeah, because to me, that reminds me a lot because people were mentioning how when we're talking about like quarterback against quarterback, this matchup between these 2 quarterbacks, it's not head-to-head. It's one quarterback going against the defense and the other quarterback going against the other defense. You're just comparing the stats.
I will say, I do think it's going to be, I think Tom Brady, it's a long road up ahead, especially with the Super Bowl loss against Brady and this Super Bowl loss. I do think it's going to be harder for Mahomes to catch up to Brady. Unless he has a similar career to Brady where he won 3 Super Bowls early in his career and then he won 4 later on in his career.
Brady had like 3 different periods of time where like 3, 2, and like another like 2 at the end of his career, and he had great numbers in each of those little eras.
Unless Mahomes can do that and kind of like, in my opinion, like if he got a 3-peat, that's a good up against Brady because no one ever had a 3-peat.
That was a big debate too, but also again, even Brady didn't get a 3-peat as well. He also, I think, didn't even get to the Super Bowl after going back-to-back. Kevin Burkhardt also mentions how that in itself is great by the Chiefs. Like, you didn't say all you want about the Chiefs, but just them going back-to-back and then heading back to the Super Bowl for 3 straight years is difficult in itself.
Yeah, it's extremely impressive, but that's like why so many people were kind of against them this year.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, I'm looking at this thing that's like directly comparing them, and I feel like Patrick Mahomes, he has a lot of catching up to do compared to Brady, but he's also, how old is he? He's young.
He's in his late 20s.
Yeah, he's in his late 20s, so Brady retired at 40 something. He retired really late in his career, so Mahomes still has so much time to like catch up to, Brady's had 5 Super Bowl MVPs, and Mahomes has already had 3.
Yeah.
Tom Brady was 45 when he retired. That's crazy.
45?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm like wondering how he was able to keep his body like
He's
in
the same
that.
age as my dad.
Yeah, it's
really?
Yeah, it's TB12. TB12, that is just like that whole market is helping Brady. But going back to, because we on our show sheet, we're mentioning about what it's meant to Mahomes' legacy. Now I'm going to go to Jalen Hurts. What does this mean for Jalen Hurts now finally winning the Super Bowl? Because I saw how like people were mentioning how, I think it was Robert Griffin III, he was mentioning on Twitter how if Jalen wins this Super Bowl, he's already better than Burrow and like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I was like, no, that's not true. It's like, well, they didn't win a Super Bowl. Burrow was only one of those others to get to the Super Bowl. He didn't win it though. Now Jalen, around that draft class, was also able, or within that draft class in those couple of years, one of those young quarterbacks, he also now is able to win the Super Bowl before those other three quarterbacks. So what does this mean for Jalen Hurts as well?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes him over like Joe Burrow and the people that came into the league at the same time as him. Especially, he played really well yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed how well-rounded of a player he is because he's making a bunch of completions. He had how many passing yards? 221.
221, average 10 per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah, and I think his run game
QB
strength really it impressed me last night. I mean, and I think that going forward, he's showing that, I mean, he just won a Super Bowl. So this is something now that he can add to his resume.
Yeah.
And he understands what it takes now too, which is really important. And that's what Brady, Mahomes, like all these other people that have consistently won Super Bowls.
I think also, like, I feel like with the other quarterbacks, Joe, Josh, they're all great quarterbacks, and of course they're 100% going to get their time in the Super Bowl and win Super Bowl championships. I also feel like right now they're like in a bad time right now because with Mahomes still in the conference,
AFC.
it's like really difficult to beat him. It's like with like what Kendrick said, like you chose like the right time, like you chose the right time but the wrong person. Like they chose the right time to be in the league just against the wrong person right now. It's like with the NFC, like really kind of up for grabs in the way every single playoff. It's not like, oh, everyone has to go against this one quarterback every single playoff, every single championship game. It's like each one's like very different. But for the AFC, it's like everyone's going to go against Mahomes in the championship game.
That's why it was tough for Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and then there's another quarterback, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah,
that's why those
against
three.
Brady,
Yes, that's why it was very hard for those three to really win anything in the AFC because they had to do such a huge gauntlet. First off, I just named those three, and they probably faced each other anyways before even facing Brady.
Yeah.
So they have to face other Hall of Fame level quarterbacks before getting to the Super Bowl and then having to face the best NFC team. So in the NFC, it's kind of the same. It's like almost exactly the same as the 2000s and early 2010s in that aspect. I do think that, in my opinion, it really felt like Jalen Hurts was kind of outside of those three, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, before this Super Bowl. It kind of felt like he was on the outside of that. I still think that those four are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's really Patrick Mahomes still. I mean, 3 championship rings, 2 MVPs. Like I can't argue against that. So for me, it's still Patrick Mahomes and then those four in any order you kind of want: Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and probably because it's like statistically and talent-wise, those three kind of have an edge over Hurts.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say that they're all in the same tier right now, especially since Hurts has probably the better accolades and playoff success. At the same time, though, you have to look at with context. Those 4 quarterbacks, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, are all facing each other every single year in the playoffs. So it's tougher than you go to Jalen Hurts, who doesn't really have another top 5 quarterback, top 10 quarterback, besides maybe Jared Goff.
Yeah.
But he's newer to like
Exactly.
that
The Lions are just getting
Exactly.
there.
Yeah, actually, talking about like Mahomes, I think also it shows like how how great Mahomes is as a quarterback. Also with his, not just his accolades, but also the fact looking at the box score. Even though they lost and Mahomes in the first half did not play well, he ended up having 257 pass yards and 3 touchdowns. Better stats than Hurts, but Hurts was still able. Was able to win the Super Bowl. I feel like also that still goes to the defense. Shout out to Vic Fangio, Philly guy, defensive coordinator for the Eagles, one of the best like defensive coordinators, like I think probably of all time now, because like how well that defense was. That's like the best defense of the entire season. They're like number 1 for the majority of the season, and they got Mahomes 6 times and allowing 2 interceptions, 1 going for a pick 6.
Yeah.
They were able to prevent the Chiefs from getting beyond the midfield. I think for like the first half, the first time in this entire season that's ever happened, and it happened in the biggest game of them all. So that is impressive in itself.
So what do we think about the halftime performance, though, with Kendrick Lamar and
Maddox was telling me like the background behind all of like the
symbolism.
Yeah, I didn't know all of that. I mean, knowing that, I liked it more. But while I was watching it, I kind of thought it was mid.
Yeah. Like for me, I feel like Kendrick Lamar definitely is. I might be like too over the top, but I feel like he's more like a modern day Shakespeare just for, like what he says in his lyrics, like is like very like clever. Each lyric
Yes.
in itself is clever,
Yeah.
but also the overall presentation performance of the halftime show in itself was very clever. Having like Samuel L. Jackson be like Uncle Sam, and mentioning about the game, and mentioning a little bit about like Black Mirror, like America, like it was like very unique how Lamar did the halftime show. I thought all the songs he chose were great. I think my only downside though was with the mic. Like people were mentioning the mic had some difficulty, really couldn't hear what most of the time what he was saying. So that I think my only downside. I didn't think it was bad. I probably won't even say like was like we had it on the show sheet. I don't think it went hard. I also don't think it was bad. I think it was like kind of like not much in the middle. I think it was a good, possibly great show. I did still say like probably the greatest halftime show of all time. Now I would just say like kind of great.
Yeah,
because there's some other great halftime shows which we'll like discuss, but I feel like just like I feel like the overall symbolism, the fact that like he even mentioned Drake by name and all that type of stuff. In the middle of a lawsuit, I feel like that like made the halftime show really great standout. The overall performance and just like and stuff like just walking around the entire time. That's what people were like, yeah, it's kind of like boring a little bit.
All the like drama kind of aspect of it was great, but the backup dancers are kind of just
walking around.
Like they're kind of
one person like broke in behind. Yeah, I heard one person broke in and was waving like some flags. I'm not gonna say which flag it was, but they were like waving some flags in the state and during the halftime performance. I was like, yeah, it'd be.
I know.
They got him off the stage, but everyone was like, I didn't even like see it on like when it was on live. I just saw on Twitter people like, yeah, they got the person waving these flags.
Actually, I personally
like that he was able to get onto the stage regardless.
I actually personally like the backup dancers because they did a lot of good job like forming the American flag. And I liked the symbolism, like when they were going back and forth between like the four, like and then they used that sound for like the woman, for the four women, and then like I actually personally liked that aspect of it. I think it was a good Super Bowl, and I think that it would be better, and I think that more people would be like, oh yeah, this is a good Super Bowl halftime show if the mic was turned up.
Yeah, I think also a lot of people were in itself. I heard people were saying they want to like protest in a way the Super Bowl halftime show just because. Because I know Skip Bayless, he did this because his friend Lil Wayne, who's a New Orleans-based rapper, wasn't even invited or wasn't even thought of first for the halftime show. Which when I was talking with my parents about it, they're like, "Oh, like the whole thing with Lil Wayne." I was like, I thought it was like a lot of like a publicity stuff. Lil Wayne's like, "Hey, I'm not going to be in the halftime show. Like I'm done." Like I feel like that was more of like a publicity stunt in a way because we all know over the halftime shows there's always surprises and whatnot. Like, we didn't expect Serena Williams to like crip walk at the halftime show. We didn't expect to see Samuel Jackson there.
Samuel Jackson was insane.
It
was. When he came on screen, I was like, what is he doing here?
In the back of my head, I thought, oh great, Capital One commercial for the halftime show. And I was like, oh wait, Samuel Jackson's actually here in person. Okay, because I really just thought back to Capital One. I was like, we're going to ask what's in our wallet.
It definitely was a lot better than the one in 2020 when The Weeknd did it. That one was all. I think
granted, it was around COVID time as well.
It was also around COVID, but still, it was just.
I would say that most Super Bowl halftime shows are actually good, and it like gets overhated. Honestly, it's just that the ones probably before 2018, before the ones before 2018, they're all like so good that they kind of compare it to those, and it's like no, it's just hard to compare it to those because those were so great.
Yeah, to me, I feel like halftime shows are kind of like superhero movies where like everyone has like these leaks and like, oh, we're thinking so and so's going to be in here, so and so's going to be in here. So when the movie in itself is good, everyone's like, oh, it wasn't great for me because I assumed all these other people are going to be in it. So I feel like before the halftime shows, no one knows what's going to happen, no one knows what songs are going to sing or who's going to be invited or whatnot. So everyone in their back of their minds like, oh, we expect this and this and this and this and this. We're so excited for this to happen. Then after it happens and it's not up to their expectations, they're all like, okay, well, it was one of the worst Super Bowls ever. And I could also go back to the way where it was back before COVID, where a lot of those halftime shows were great. And of course, after COVID, things got kind of mixed up a little bit and kind of got like just a little way like dismantled. But I feel like a lot of people were like expecting, oh, we won so and so in here, we won so and so in here. Then when it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, it's not great. Even though their main perception, what they thought was going to be, didn't live up to it. Then they're like, okay, it wasn't a great halftime show, which in itself was a good halftime show. People were like, oh, overall we didn't like it because we thought it was going to be like this and this and this. It was going to include this person or include this and that. It didn't, so it's not lived up to my expectations.
Exactly. That's why I feel like I try to never go into them with a mentality of what to expect because I mean, that goes for like all aspects of life, but if you go into something with like preset, this has to happen in order for me to be happy, then you're gonna get disappointed.
Yeah.
But out of the newer like halftime performances, my personal favorite definitely has to have been the Eminem, Snoop Dogg,
Same.
and Dr. Dre performance.
Yeah.
The set for it was incredible.
So clever.
Yes.
So clever.
And the way that they like slowly brought in new characters, kind
Yeah.
of.
I also like how they brought in like they had the original like 5 they were promoting, which all like rap hip hop icons, including Kendrick Lamar. Then they bring in like 50 Cent out of nowhere. Everyone's like, oh my God, 50 Cent. Like I remember seeing a video. There's like grandma was watching. She's like, oh my God, like dancing in her seat.
Yeah.
So like it's great. Like that was a good performance. It was a good set. Great songs were played. They did just a good job and a great homage to LA in itself, because their first song was California Love by the late great Tupac. So also bringing out LA culture to the main stage, as well as like playing that in front of their home crowd before playing on any of their other songs, really.
I feel like that's why I feel like some Super Bowls, like when they don't introduce, like my favorite Super Bowl was the Shakira one with J-Lo and with Bruno Mars, and I'm pretty sure they didn't announce that Bruno Mars and J-Lo were going to be there until we actually saw it happen live.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see, unless I missed it, but it was really cool to see like, for of course Shakira, and then they're on the 3 opposite sides of the stadium, like they kind of come all together at once, like towards the end, and then they're all singing each other's favorite song, like all each other's songs that they're playing, and that's probably why that's my favorite Super Bowl. Like that's better, right? When you're kind of like surprised and we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Same thing with movies, like superhero movies. Like, hey, guess what? The Red Hulk is gonna be in
Like
this
I
one,
remember seeing stuff on Twitter where everyone's like, oh, leaks from the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They're gonna have Ghost Rider and this and this and this, and
that ruins it.
Yeah, but
does.
also granted, the trailers they spoiled it
Everything.
so much.
Yeah.
The only surprise was a fan picked John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. After that, other than that, really nothing was surprising. The Deadpool Wolverine movie kind of lived up to that presumed expectations. But if like for comic book movies and whatnot, like everyone's like, oh, we think this character is going to show up. We're hearing rumors this character. So everyone's back in their minds like, okay, it's going to be a great movie because I have all these people in it.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, then it's like, okay, it wasn't great because it didn't have what I wanted.
Well, I do think that we probably should start kind of wrapping up our little Super Bowl segment. But really quick, who do we think is going to be next year? You can start. Pressure's on you.
Okay, so looking at the logo, which is multicolored.
Oh yeah,
very
they
much,
did. They just dropped the logo. It was today, right?
Or
last night.
Last night, I think.
For the new Super Bowl, and they made it so many colors. It's like pink, purple, blue, green.
Yeah, because the original leak was it was gonna be like just like bright and like dark blue. But I think then they switched up. To me, my little like theory is like, oh, they're like having like now open for grabs, no like little like leaks or like little like script moments. Like now gonna be like open for up for grabs.
I don't
now.
really like the new logo. It's kind of cartoon-like almost, and the other ones have just looked a lot cleaner.
Yeah, they should really do like go back. I was telling this with Morgan. I think it was there before our show where we were mentioning how the logo. No, I think we might have been mentioning during our show with the logos for the Super Bowl. Like before, like after Super Bowl 10, like it got very creative for each city.
Yeah.
I wish they went back to that because for this it just doesn't look good. But
Okay, but who are your teams?
so looking at it, I think it will probably be. I'm seeing blue, light blue and white. I'm thinking probably be Detroit.
Yeah, I
And then
like that pick.
No, I'm going to do is I'm also seeing purple. I'm going to say it'll be Ravens and Lions. I'm going to say that. Ravens and Lions.
Okay.
Oh, me next?
I-
It's actually, you go.
I want. Okay, obviously I want the Lions to be in it, but I do think that they could do it. So I'm going to say the Lions, and then I'm hoping. Honestly, I want it to be the Super Bowl that we all kind of wanted this year. I want a Lions and a Bills Super Bowl next year.
So I was going to say though.
I'd
like,
also be happy with the Ravens, but I'm hoping
Bills.
it's.
I was going to say though. There's a little bit of green, a little bit of red and yellow. So maybe
the Packers.
No. Maybe it'll be like Super Bowl like rematch from last Super Bowl. Maybe it'll be Chiefs and Eagles again.
You know what's
Don't say that.
It's funny that you say Lions and Ravens because I was like for some reason I just had a vision, like I was dreaming. I went to bed and I was dreaming and I dreamt of a Lions versus Ravens Super Bowl. So that's what I was
that little dream bubble and just like Ravens,
Yeah.
Lamar hosting the Lombardi.
Yes, literally.
So when that happens next year, it'll be because
exactly.
of you.
It's gonna be because of me.
Okay.
And honestly, sometimes it can bite me back in the butt, being a prediction and then like they just horrible season. But I'm gonna say it right now. I've been always on the I'm a safe guy.
Yeah.
You know, I say, oh, the Chiefs are gonna win the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs versus the Eagles this year. I actually picked the Chiefs and the Eagles to go back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But this year, I'm finally saying it. I think it's time. He needs to get it done finally. Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm predicting they're winning the Super Bowl next year.
And then who would their opponent be?
The Detroit Lions.
The Detroit Lions. All right.
Okay, well, next year we won't like each other. But
we're gonna bookmark this clip of us all predicting the Super Bowl,
And then it's
we're
gonna be
gonna,
like
look back on the.
It's going to be like the Broncos versus the Seahawks.
it'll be the most random teams.
No,
But
it's
let's.
gonna be whatever team wears pink versus whoever team wears purple. It's gonna be like that's gonna be the Super Bowl.
Okay, let's wrap up our little Super Bowl segment and go into our live read. So if you're a club or student organization wanting to promote an event you're hosting, or you just want to promote yourself, DM UPress Sports on Instagram with the 3 to 4 sentence paragraph, and we'll read it live on air. Now, we're back into our FAU housekeeping.
There we go.
And FAU basketball, they have a game tonight against Charlotte. Now they're 13-10. They're 6-4 in the AAC. Saturday they just had a 79-55 win over Tulsa. So that's their third straight game in a row that they've won by 20 points.
They were shooting lights out in that game. Clean from Kiki, they were shooting lights out.
They were, and I was looking through kind of like the game highlights. There's this one that I clipped that should be running. You guys should be seeing it on YouTube. But Walker just had an incredible connection with Baba Miller, and I feel like this is something that we're really starting to see get going. We talked about this on the last show a bit too, but moments like this are so important because when Miller or like Carroll or anyone goes up and just has kind of one of those dunks that's like it brings the team's energy. Yes, it helps with their momentum. So I'm really glad that we're seeing those connections. And how are you guys feeling about like what you've seen from his ability to make assists, like Walker?
Oh, for Walker, I mean, I believe I looked at the stats where, like, previously when I was covering one of the games, how, like, he was, like, the assist leader for the team. Yeah, for the team. So, I mean, again, like, I mentioned this, like, last week, how, like, a lot of players are now just starting to find their role within this team. It's particularly, it's a little bit difficult in the beginning because, one, everyone's new, but also the fact that almost everyone on this team that transferred was, like, that guy on their team. So now I was like, okay, now I gotta, like, figure out how to share that time, that my minutes with everyone else. And I remember the broadcast was mentioning, like, that for Caleb Glenn, where he more of like a bench role now, and he's like playing well on the bench. He just scored 11 points, and like I feel like the entire team's like finding like what their identity is, finding what their role is within the team. And I mean, looking at like the depth chart, almost everyone except for Jack Johnson, who was his family was lives in Tulsa now, so like a hometown like kid a little bit, even though he says he's listed from New York, or he's from New York. But like a hometown kid. Unfortunately, still hasn't gotten any points, I don't think, this season. But looking with everyone else was able to score points. It shows like the depth of this team and how well the team's able to now find out who they are, their identity is. I also feel like the schedule is right now in their favor, which is good. But also, I mean, it doesn't look too impressive when you're playing against right now. Your past two games, you're playing against, especially with this game against Charlotte, you're playing against like two teams that are like bottom of the conference. Like it looks good. You're gonna get a bona fide win. You're gonna keep your win streak going and keep that momentum going. You're gonna start finding your swing as a team. But also then it's like not really impressive when you're playing teams that are like way below 500, where it's like, okay, that's a given. You guys are gonna win that.
Yeah, but I think that the way that they're winning these games is still important to note because it's like the teams that are kind of lower in the conference. But sometimes what we see happen is when a good team plays like a weaker team, they match their level. But the fact that the last 3 games they're winning by 20 points, it's showing, I feel like, that they're strong and that they can like hold their ground and continue to play their type of game, even against someone that they could kind of like fall to.
Yeah, I mean, also looking at like how well also looking at like the defensively. I mean, they allowed 31.7% from the field. 14.3% from the behind the arc. Defensively, so their defense now starting to stack up because we mentioned earlier in the season where it was like offense looks good, defense struggling. Then it turned around a little bit where it was like defense is good, offense struggling. Now it's like at a like perfect medium where it's like both sides of the ball working so well hand in hand together.
Although this win streak right now is against maybe not the best competition, it's like the lower tier competition in the American Athletic Conference, I will say that this is probably the most important time of the year for basketball and to get that momentum going.
Yeah, because we're about to head into March.
Yes,
So guys are looking
that
good.
stretch where you play great against good teams bumps into the those teams that you play that are better than you or on the same level as you, and then with that extra momentum you have during that stretch where you play good against lower tier teams, it helps that momentum even if they're slightly over you guys or they're the exact same as you. So it's like a toss up. That momentum can go into those tough games and can help them.
Yeah, and especially looking at the fact that after Wichita State on the 20th, Wichita State, I believe, is like one of the 2 teams on the bottom of the conference. Then they're playing against Memphis, which I believe is still currently ranked. Then North Texas, one of the best in the conference.
Yep.
USF,
It's a divisional
on the road, USF is kind of a tough
rival.
opponent, even though FAU, a rivalry, FAU was able to take out USF by over 20 plus points, but still now you're going on the road against USF, and you're sure, USF is going to be prepared for that.
Oh, definitely.
Then UAB, also one of the best in conference, with one of the best players in all of college basketball, Yaxel Lendenberg. And then finally against ECU, which I have to double check the standings. I don't think ECU is one of those like top teams as well, more of like
they're kind of in the middle.
Yeah, kind of mid-tier teams. So that's like how they're going to end their season. So winning against Charlotte's a big game, also like a big game for them. Temple is also going to be big because they're like in the top 5 right now in the conference. Wichita State, like
and
the lower
then
team.
they'll enter that kind of difficult period.
Yeah, like every game matters. I also feel like with these lower opponent teams, sure, like it won't look too impressive being like, oh, you defeated that team, like you're supposed to beat that team because that team is bad. But also it's like it's important to win those teams, so it adds more confidence to your team. Your team gets to play a lot better, I feel like, but also it helps your record, it helps your final seeding. And so by the time February 23rd comes around, where they're on the road against Memphis, they'll have like that confidence, find out what their identity actually is, as well having a very good record.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, we have a tough stretch, but we know what we are now as a team. Granted, very late in the season to figure out who they were, but it's still great to end up finding out who they were before March started.
Exactly. But in tonight's game, so as we kind of said, they're playing Charlotte, and it's dedicated as the Sandstorm game. Last year for the Sandstorm game, it was against SMU, and FAU ended up winning 80-70. And I remember, Morgan, I don't know if you remember, I was trying to talk to Maddox about this earlier, but in last year's Sandstorm game was when Elijah Martin had that
huge dunk.
Yes,
I do remember that. I covered that game, remember?
You did cover
I covered
it.
that game, yes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was looking through to try to see who the game was last year, and I was like, oh, Morgan Larkins was writer.
Yeah.
But I just remember I was sitting, that's one of the few games I went to as a fan. I was right in this section. So hopefully tonight, student section will get something along those lines again. But with tonight's game against Charlotte, it also brings back Giancarlo Rosado.
Yep.
He played for FAU for 4 seasons, and he was on the Final Four team. When he was at FAU, he averaged 4.8 points, and then he had 3 rebounds last season. And then now at Charlotte, he's doing incredible. He's averaging 11.5 points per game and 6 rebounds. So they've already met with him before once this season, but it was in Charlotte. Now, since he's coming back, I'm kind of curious, like, how do you think that the fans are going to be welcoming him? I saw today he posted on his Instagram, like, glad to be back in South Florida, or like, love for this area, or something like that.
I feel like definitely with Trey and Todd Abernathy, the assistant coach, only 2 really that were, it was Trey, Devin, Jaquel, Jack, and also Todd Abernathy, the only ones that were stayed with FAU. They're of course going to there's no love lost to Giancarlo. They're going to happy that he's back. They're going to show support for him. I remember speaking with Abernathy and I think with Carol during the preseason media day. I asked him about we're going to play against Giancarlo and Brennan at home. You guys looking forward to that? And we're just be happy to see them in person, see how they're doing. We're glad for that. So again, no love lost, but I feel like for the fans, a lot different, particularly the Prowlers, the diehard fans. They're almost our entire team left after our head coach left.
Yeah.
These guys, especially with Giancarlo going to a rival conference, also adds fuel to the fire.
Especially because he was from the West Palm area.
Yeah, it's also a local guy leaving as well. So I think everyone there, the fans are not going to show him any love. They're not going to show him any love at all. I also feel like the freshmen and again transfer students are coming in. not knowing much about like, the men's team's like history. I'm sure the Prowlers are gonna like have a little like thing saying, hey, here's what like FAU, what Giancarlo did for FAU and what he did when he left, why we're mad with him, and what you should like the chance to just say.
Yeah.
Like I know for like UTSA, they said boo every time the team is mentioned, like being like who cares like every time the opposing team's mentioned and they're starting lineups, like trying to find ways like poke fun at the team. They're definitely gonna boo Giancarlo when he's introduced every time he has the ball. Definitely around shooting time.
I'm curious what they're gonna do if he shoots free throws.
Oh my!
Like what they're gonna put on like the boards and stuff. Plus, they're having another.
It would be great if they did, or at least what the marketing team would do, is like get a picture of Giancarlo with FAU with them at the Final Four when they got to the Final Four. Have that picture like showing from him, like, hey, here's what you missed, or like something like little guilt. Do something like that instead of like doing the Rizzler. Show that, like that would really kind of get into Giancarlo's head.
That would be pretty funny. And they're also doing another tailgate, so. I mean, we're college students. We kind of know what tailgates mean. So people are going to go to that and then go to the student section where, like you said, the Prowlers are definitely going in with the mentality of, hey, this guy, we have to boo him because that's how, as like, we all understand why he left.
Yeah.
We understand it. His teammates understand it. Anyone who's like within the sporting realm, they get why he did because so many players are transferring. It's not like something that's uncommon. I mean, that's why they lost like 11 players.
Yeah, I just feel like what really added fuel to the fire was it being a conference rival, like him. And so it's Giancarlo and Brendan Lorian, who also both playing really well for their respective schools, which we'll go into a little bit later. They both went to conference opponents, Charlotte and UNT, North Texas, respectively. So they went to conference opponents, but I think added more fuel to the fire because FAU didn't have Arkansas, they didn't have Florida, they didn't have Michigan on their schedule. So like, okay, well, like we may not be huge fans of seeing like Dusty May and Black Golden or Elijah Martin on our screens on Saturday, but our team's not playing against them, so we're not gonna be like too mad at them. But we know we're gonna see Giancarlo and Brennan playing times this regular season and possibly also the postseason as well in the conference tournament because everyone plays each other in the conference tournament. So that's gonna be like, so they're putting all their energy and resources on that, on those two.
I think that's a good point. Definitely, like those two are why people kind of were upset with the leave. Like obviously with Vlad, he followed Dusty to Michigan, so I think everyone kind of understood that. And then people were also mad about Nick because he went to San Diego State.
I was really shocked
that's
by
like
that.
The school that literally shot the layup.
I think it was against. I think
over him.
I think it was either Boyd or Greenlee was defending
Yeah,
Lamont Butler, who shot
it was Nick Boyd.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
he went to the other team.
That team. So with that, I was kind of like, are you serious? Everyone else was like, whatever.
I hope Jacobs does next season, especially for I want to see this my senior year, is trying to book Michigan game, Arkansas, Florida, the San Diego State game. Like I would love to see those matchups. Like I don't know if it's really going to happen because most of the guys who transferred are like seniors and whatnot, so they're probably going to graduate.
Draft,
but also be just very interesting to see like going against those schools.
But I'm glad that she brought up Jacobs. Actually, 3 days ago, the FAU men's basketball and like the AAC, they made a post about him. He got hit with a bunch of rankings. In the AAC, he's number 1 in assists, like the team is. Number 1 with bench points with 32. Number 2 in scoring with 81. And then number 3 in field goal percentage with 46.5. And then number 5 from three-point shooting with 35.1. And then on the national scale, we're FAU's number 12 in bench points with the 32, number 30 in assists, and then number 36 like in the country in shooting. So did you guys see this like when it had got released?
Yeah, I did see this when it got released, and I was actually kind of surprised at the national rankings for a little bit. I thought that other teams would be higher than us, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense when you think about it because it's like the competition that they're facing, SEC versus SEC, Big Ten versus Big Ten, obviously their defense is going to be like their defensive matchups and their matchups are going to be closer and like probably, like you're going to see a lot of 70 versus 71 and stuff like that. So it kind of makes sense, right? And we face a lot of teams and FAU is a great offensive team. Like one of the things that Dracus has done really well is, yes, we're scoring a lot. Yes, we're shooting a lot of threes, and when we hit them, we're like a really great team. So, in the bench points, that doesn't surprise me actually, because honestly, like a few of the players on the bench could start if they really needed to. Like Titus and Moretti and Caleb Glenn.
Starter.
And Caleb Glenn, all three of those guys are starter level players. They're just coming off the bench because everyone's kind of the same level.
Yeah, to me, I think this definitely shows, obviously, one, the depth. I mean, the depth is FAU's strong suit. It was during their Final Four back-to-back March Madness runs. The depth was their strong suit. This season, same thing. But also, I mentioned how, like, I tweeted this of seeing like how great FAU's scoring was. I was like, this is what happens when we bring in international basketball and all these great transfers into college basketball. This is what happens. This like high scoring, again, Jacobs once add like 100 points per game. This is one of the top scoring teams, again, in the nation. It shows that's what he wants to do, averaging about 81 points per game, second in the conference, 36 overall. That's what he wanted with this team. It shows like the depth. It shows got the right players, and now they are all finally figuring out what they are now doing as a team. And I do firmly believe, if not this year, definitely 100% next year, when FAU finds out what they are as a team, their identity, everyone knows what roles they're playing. After like a year, when Coach Jacobs is settled in, Boca, and the whole program's back settled in, once he gets like recruits from like high school, once he brings in any transfer guys, like once he does all that, this is going to be the most dangerous team in the country. And I also believe that could be the same case in the conference tournament, because again, they need to win that conference tournament against the March Madness. If they don't, I'd be happy like for NIT appearance, but I think like the conference tournament, like they are going to be an absolute threat, and this just also shows how great the American Athletic Conference basketball is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, because like the national rankings is too what like stood out to me, because I feel like being number 36 in scoring in like the whole country, that is incredible. I mean, to say the least, and especially since it's his first year as a head coach, it just shows how much he really did learn from his time working at Baylor
and Gonzaga. He was with those championship teams, and they went to the final March Madness Final Four championship. He went to was with those programs when they won those championships and when they made those appearances. Trey Carroll and Todd Abernathy, like they all made it to the March Madness, made it to the Final Four. They all had that understanding of what it takes to get there. That's why players like Caleb Glenn and Ken Evans Jr. and Baba Miller all went transferred from a couple big name Power 4 schools and also from a SWAC school, all coming to FAU because I want to get a championship. I want to go to the playoffs. I want to go to this big stage, the biggest stage of like really all big stages in all of college basketball. And Jacobs knows how to get there. Yeah. Carroll knows how to get there. Todd Abernathy, the assistant head coach, knows what it takes to get there. And so I want to go to that program because they know what it takes to get there.
Exactly. As this person commented under the post, fear the beard.
we had Trusty and Dusty. We have
Dusty.
No. Dusty, we trusty. Now we have
fear the beard. I like that. Yeah, actually, that whoever made that comment, that was a good one.
We could shout him out. It was
Jackson.
Bo Blackwell, or Bo could be his middle name. Jackson Blackwell, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
So anyway, shout out Jackson. Hopefully you're watching OwlTV's UPress show.
I was gonna say something, but then I saw that comment and I just got distracted. But yeah, I think that can kind of like wrap up. Do we have any score predictions for tonight's game? Do you think we'll break 100 again?
When was the last time we broke 100?
That was like early in the season.
Yeah. You know what? Why not? I'm feeling optimistic. 101 to 69.
Okay.
That's pretty big. That's a pretty big gap.
I'm gonna go like 86 to like 70.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna go like probably 97 to 65.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see if any of us are right.
We'll also probably clip this and like post it right before the game starts. Be like, let's see who got it right.
Let's put $10 on it.
No, we don't bet over here.
No. As JD once said, we don't gamble on here.
We don't gamble.
Off camera, maybe. On camera, nah.
No, not even off camera. So many people probably lost so much money.
If I bet on,
on
I predicted the Chiefs. My mom was like, "So you think the Chiefs are gonna win?" So if you bet money, we put on the Chiefs. I'm like, I guess so, and so I'll probably lost money. I heard one person, I followed one person who's like a sports media person, a student here at FAU, and he said he like bet U.S. currency on the Chiefs. I'm like, dude, you should imagine Kendrick Lamar bet Canadian currency on the Chiefs. That'd be funny. That'd be on the Eagles. That'd be so funny.
To me, sports betting just like ruins the game.
Yeah.
Because
the enjoyment of it.
then you're rooting for certain players. You're rooting for for certain players, because a lot of people, they'll like bet on like parlays and stuff.
They'll bet like who scores the first touchdown.
Yeah, so
who
you're
gets the
rooting.
three-pointer.
Apparently, people like bet on who's gonna win the coin toss.
Oh yeah, so the Super Bowl
I
was crazy.
found
They
that
even
out.
bet on what tie Tom Brady wears, which was black. But like everyone was saying, like, oh, what tie would he wear? Maybe gray, maybe blue. And it's like
What?
you're all betting on what tie a guy wears. Okay.
This country is ridiculous sometimes, to say the least. But getting off men's basketball, now entering to our FAU women's basketball. Now they're 10-15 and 2-10 in the AAC. I'm disappointed in you guys. Last show, I specifically said you're playing Wichita State and they are last in the AAC and you have to win. And then FAU ended up losing it was 54-44. I wrote in here that they needed that win, and they really did, because now they're tied for dead last in the AAC. After losing to Wichita State, then they went and played Memphis and also lost 73-60. I don't even know what really at this point they could do to kind of turn it around.
I feel like there's no way they're going to turn it around. I mean, looking at like the box score for that Wichita State game, sure, granted they lost by 10, which like, okay, they lost by 10, not that bad. You lost to, at that point, like the worst team in the conference. Now you are the worst team in the conference. Maya Perry came, they were, I think, her first game in a couple weeks.
Oh, she had a concussion.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so leading the team with 22 points, led both teams in scoring with 22 points. No one else on the team really helped her at all. The closest was by 9 points by Jada Moore. And the team, 7 for 26 from behind the arc, 17 for 62 from the field. In the third quarter, while you were up 30-29, when you have 30 points, you put up 4 the next quarter, and combined 14 in the second half. That is abysmal, and I'm always gonna say this for this season until it happens. The head coach needs to be fired.
Period.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But yeah, and now in their next game on Saturday, they're playing USF. And the last time that they played them was January 18th this season, and FAU lost. It was 85-59. So
Nice.
I'm gonna be pessimistic and say that I have no faith for that game.
Exactly.
And
I feel like for any of these games, FAU will probably be the opposite of the Chiefs and find a way to lose those games. I feel like, because I mean, you have like one of the best players and assists in the country and in the conference, and Stephanie Ingram. You have a pretty good depth with like Zai Jenks having good games, Maya Perry just having a good game, Jada Moore doing well. Like having great players on his team, and the team is just not turning up any results. And it all winds down to coaching and what you're doing as a head coach. Because again, 25 games into the season, you are 6 games away from your conference from the conference tournament. You are now last in the conference. You lost by 10. You shot abysmal as a team against Wichita State on the road, one of the worst teams in their conference.
Yeah.
That is all on you as a head coach. And again, 4 years now, not once a winning record. She has to go.
yeah, I mean, because they're playing UTSA soon, right?
Yeah.
UTSA.
Yeah,
first.
UTSA is first in the conference.
Yeah. On the road too, they're not going to win.
South Florida's second, and then FAU and Wichita State both in dead last. They're both 2-10. So, I don't know.
They have a couple of matchups that, against
you
Rice, like they already beat Rice earlier this year. Memphis, where it's like, okay, they're close, but...
But we thought Wichita State, like they have to win that game because that team like worse in the
lost.
conference, and you don't shoot well as a team overall. Again, granted, it could be like, oh, well, the players, they're not shooting well. Yeah, but at the end of the day, is the coach is preparing the players for that game. So what are you doing as a coach? Because the only thing that's consistently with the team is that they're not playing well. And all it goes down to coaching.
This kind of just circles back to our conversation we had where it's like, well, this team has been struggling ever since they made it to the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, the men's team has been soaring, but the women's team has been struggling.
It seems that they beat our teams that are lower in a lower conference than the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, I feel like what they should do is, what Brian White should do, obviously, obviously, I'm still advocating
This
for this.
makes Maddox very
Yeah.
mad.
Obviously, I'm obviously going to advocate for this, but of course, Brian, what I should do is fire Coach Sullivan and find a coach probably within the conference that has had some wins, either like a former head coach, like an assistant coach who wants to have an opportunity to be a head coach and knows what it's like to have a winning record against teams in the athletic conference, who knows how to play against teams in the American Athletic Conference, and then bring her or him in to the team as a new head coach. That's what you should do. You should find someone who knows what it takes to win in the conference, because apparently, even with both in Conference USA and now in the American, Coach Sullivan does not know what to do as a head coach for how to succeed.
I guess we'll have to see, how they do in the tournament and how they do with their final stretch of games. But I just feel like next time I update the sheet, it's going to be 10 and 16 rather than bumping up to 11. Yeah. But on to FAU softball. So the softball,
a light note.
Yeah, on a little light bulb. FAU softball, their season just started. They just had their Paradise Classic, and they're 6-0. They won out the 3rd annual Paradise Classic, and during the tournament, they had a couple of really important games. They beat number 25 ranked Clemson, in the country, 6-2, and then they also had what was the game against Missouri State?
Missouri State in 5 innings.
5 innings, 11-0.
Yeah, the reason why it was 5 innings was so I don't know if this is for men's. I don't know if it's for baseball, but certainly for softball. If a team is up by 8 runs or more, or maybe just more than 8 runs, between the 5th and 7th inning, the game's over. So if you're up by more than 8 runs, the game is over between the 5th and 7th inning. So FAU won the 5th inning, up 11-0 over Missouri State. Missouri State winless. Georgia State right now winless. Clemson, I think.
Clemson's a huge win for them.
Yeah, again, because they're ranked, but also Ole Miss and Kansas, and then Clemson, first 3 games, all against Power 4 schools, and they won all of those games they played. Well, their offense was terrific. So I covered the game from Clemson all the way to the 2nd game of Georgia State. That's I'm a little bit sunburned because one of the games was outside in the sun, so that was very fun. But I was covering those final 4 games, and they looked incredible as a team. They looked like an entire unit. Offense was clicking. Everyone was playing well. Kylie Chanel against, I believe it was Clemson, I believe it was. She hit the game's lone home run that kickstarted a 6-2 campaign. FAU just kept running to the bases, loading up the bases. Gabby Sacco, the senior pitcher, she threw a no-hitter against Missouri State. Autumn Courtney against first matchup against Georgia State, she threw a complete game. So pitching is great, defense is great, offense is clicking. It's a nightmare I feel like FAU is a nightmare for teams to play against. Also because for the second time under head coach Jordan Clark, and the highest now for them, they're now ranked in the top 25 in the Softball America poll, the highest for them since being ranked 25 last year. So this is now their highest ranked, and I feel like this whole group as a team, they're playing really well, that I feel like this team is going to be 100% a problem for anyone to face moving forward. Starting off with Minnesota, which will be in the Joan Joyce Classic this upcoming Thursday at 6 p.m. I know students, I think, to show out their student ID, they get in for free. Yeah, and every single game basically was crowded.
Yeah,
it was everyone
the softball team, they did amazing last year, and now 6 games in, they're already showing that they're going to do it again. Yeah,
especially starting your first 3 games against Power 4 schools, which is really clever by Jordan Clark for scheduling, I believe, scheduling those games against those big name power schools, and then FAU just winning every single game. The first 2 games were within 1 run, but everyone else was by more than 4. They had combined for those 4 games. They had, I think, almost probably close to 40, maybe late 30 runs, about either 37 to 40 runs as a team, allowing only 4 runs from the opponent. Missouri State, I know, had I think 3 or 4 errors. Same for Georgia State in the 2nd game. Teams been struggling playing against them defensively, but offensively, FAU has just been playing lights out on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm. So what time do you think that, if I want to go to this game, what time do you think I should go to a softball game if it's always packed? will be enough seats for everybody? Like, is it like a basketball game that you have to get there like very early?
Well, for like the Paradise Classic games, like it's other teams playing against each other. It's more like I think like an invitational type thing, so everyone's like playing against each other.
Yeah,
Because
'cause
a couple of the
right
games
now-
I called, like for the Clemson and Georgia State game, a game was happening prior, so Clemson was delayed like a couple of hours, and same goes for the Georgia State game. So I
Gotcha.
didn't get home until like way past midnight. So
That's
it depends.
fair.
It depends on like the schedule, like how long the other games are going. But I mean, for like a 6 p.m. game, like if you want to see some free softball beforehand, I mean, albeit, I mean, you can like get there like around 4 p.m. and like enjoy a hot dog and just wait until the Minnesota game starts or something.
Definitely when they start like the conference play, then it'll be a lot easier because
Yeah.
it's not like a tournament style.
Yeah, it's just like
But-
there's also like a pattern as well. Like I know for the men's team, it's like 6 p.m. on Friday, 4 p.m. Saturday, 12 p.m. Sunday every single time. And then I think for women's, I think for the softball, it is like I'm gonna look up the schedule. Yeah, it's 6 p.m. Fridays, 2 p.m. Saturdays, noon Sundays. So a kind of very similar pattern for each of those games like that.
Yeah. And if you don't want to get sunburnt, go to the later game.
Yeah.
Maddox is in need of an umbrella, so if anyone has one and wants to donate, he didn't want my I have a pink polka dot one.
Yeah,
He
no,
didn't
I'm
want
good.
it.
I'm good. I'm good.
But I'm excited now that softball's back, and I never really got into softball, but with their success last year, so
I mean, same for me. Like, I really didn't pay much attention to softball. I probably should have. Also, I mean, I want to get better at broadcasting, like covering sports and whatnot. So, like my freshman year, I just covered men's basketball, football, and baseball. Sophomore year, really didn't cover much baseball or softball. Now I'm trying to get back to covering those sports again. So it's been a while since I called softball and whatnot. So I'm like me sending clips out some people who called softball professionally, get some feedback, try to develop my skills. But I mean, what I love most about softball and baseball is their schedules are so great. I mean, for this Joan Joyce Classic, it's 13th and 14th and 2 games on the 15th and a game on the 16th. So every single day is a game. And then over the weekends, they play 3 games against like the same opponent. Like, it's a great schedule because there'd be a lot of times where there are like be like a week or two, and they're playing like an opponent every single day for that entire week, and then they go on the road for like a little bit, and then come back and play like another like week straight against opponents. Like the schedule's really good for like if you want to get into like broadcasting or like covering games like and like media. Like that's a great
but
schedule.
as one of the athletes, that schedule must
Yeah.
be not
Yeah.
great. But yeah, we'll have to see how they continue to do and how men's basketball does tonight against Charlotte. But on that note, I think it's about time to wrap things up.
Yeah.
So where can they find you guys?
They can find me on Instagram at MaddoxBlade04 and on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg.
And you can find me on Instagram at Megan_Brunsma and Twitter Megan Brunsma.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, MJ_Larkins.
Okay, see you all next week.
Peace.